Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in this video I'm going to discuss the second part of the respiration chapter completed. If you haven't seen the first part, it will be better if you see that one first in order to make things clearer, okay? Now, I know this picture is a bit blurred, but I'll read it out and you can open the subtitles. Okay, so let's go. The larynx. Air passes through here during breathing. When breathing out, the vocal cords can be made to vibrate. The sounds produced make speech. Okay, so this is the larynx. Okay, next, I'll change side. The trachea. The trachea is this part present. Okay, the trachea is a tube that carries air towards the lungs. C-shaped rings of cartilage prevent the trachea from collapsing. There are C-shaped rings over here which prevent the trachea from collapsing. Okay, so that air can continuously go in. Okay, then the bronchus. The bronchus is the first part of the trachea. There's one bronchus to each lung. One bronchus here, one bronchus over here. Okay, so I'll just clean this up. Okay, so then the bronchiole is a final, very fine branch leading to the alveolus. These are the bronchioles, which are found after the bronchus. Okay, then the alveoli. The alveolus, these are lined by the membranes where gas exchange takes place. The surface is moist, thin, and has an enormous area. In humans, the total area is as big as a tennis court. Now that's interesting. This is an enlarged place of the alveolus. This is just this tiny little thing is enlarged and it's so complicated. Okay. Then the branch of the pulmonary artery delivers a deoxygenated blood at high pressure from the right ventricle or the heart. Now these parts are the ribs which protect the lungs from getting any damage. These are the ribs present over here. And then there are intercostal muscles. This I will discuss later on in this topic. The pleural membrane, this and this, all three of these I'll discuss later on. Okay. Now what is this? The nucleus. This structure is also very important. Okay. So these are the cilia. There are fine hair over here which brush the mucus past. They're okay, so the definition is they're fine hairs on surface of cells. These can beat in a coordinated way to carry mucus with trapped microbes away from the lungs, right? These are the goblet cells. They produce a sticky mucus which actually sticks the dirt and the bacteria to itself and then is flushed out. Okay, so these are the goblet cells which produce mucus. Then there's the basement membrane. This thing, this brown thing, it holds all these cells together. Okay, and that's complete. Let's move on. Okay, so these are an alveoli, and you know this small thing is enlarged into this, and one of this is enlarged into this. Okay, so deoxygenated blood comes. This is, you can say, a capillary. Okay, so deoxygenated blood comes from here. You can see it's blue, and oxygen is present over here, right? So oxygen diffuses into the red blood cells which are present in this capillary, and therefore the deoxygenated cells become oxygenated cells and they go away into the oxygenated blood, and therefore this can be a small structure of the alveoli. Okay, let's proceed further. Now breathing. Okay, this is a very important topic. Part 1. Intercostal muscles, they contract and pull the ribcage outwards. Okay, as these arrows show, the lung is pushed outwards so that there is a vacuum created and air can be sucked in from here, right? The diaphragm muscle contracts and the diaphragm moves downwards. Okay, the diaphragm is supposed to be something like here and it goes downwards in order to create more space for the air to come in, right? 3. Lung volume increases, obviously, because if the ribs increase and the diaphragm increases, the lung volume will increase. And now the pleural membrane and pleural fluid. Okay, these are sticky and also slippery. Okay, now these, you could say, are sticky substance present over here and they stick to the vertebrate, and therefore when the vertebrate and the ribs increase in size, they pull the lungs to increase in size as well. Okay, now the other part is when you're breathing out, right? So when the intercostal muscles push the ribcage inwards, and when the diaphragm also exerts pressure inwards, the air has nowhere to go because the lung is so small. The air has to go out from this way, right? Therefore, lung volume decreases and the pressure increases, and thus air is forced out, right? Now, the third part, the compulsive exercise. Now, too much exercise. Okay, now what are the benefits or what are the harms of too much exercise, right? So, these are 6 I've compiled to teach what is harmful with too much exercise, right? So, first is the compulsive exercise. Now, the compulsive exercise is when an exercise addict no longer chooses to exercise but feels compelled to do so and struggles with guilt and anxiety if he or she doesn't complete their exercise, right? And because of this, when they work too hard, it is often associated with eating disorders and injuries. Second thing is the torn muscles. Pain that occurs in the calf muscles or the lower part of the leg often is a result of a pulled or torn calf, right? This is called when a calf is sprained. And the third one is torn Achilles tendon, okay? The Achilles tendon joins the calf and the muscles of the lower leg to the heel of the foot, okay? So if the muscles are weak and become fatigued, they may tighten and shorten, okay? The more you work hard, the more tighten and shorten they will become, resulting to muscle fatigue. The tightness can increase the stress on the Achilles tendon and result in a rupture, okay? Then is the cardiac myopathy, okay? Now this is a specific disease in some people. It can be genetic, but it can also result from too much exercise. This is when the heart muscle that causes the heart to become enlarged, okay? So the heart becomes enlarged and pumps less strongly. As a result, it becomes weak, thin or floppy and is unable to pump blood efficiently around the body. This causes fluid to build in the lungs and therefore become congested, and therefore it can lead to heart failure. Though this is, as I've previously mentioned, this is mostly genetic, but because if you exercise too hard, then this can also be a problem, right? Then there's a stress fracture. The stress fracture is a fracture that occurs when forces are much lower than a car crash or fall. You don't actually fracture yourself, but if you do a certain exercise which is damaging you continuously, then what happens is day by day your muscles get weakened more and more, and finally it can cause into a fracture. This is usually seen in athletes who run and jump on hard surfaces such as distance runners, basketball players and ballet dancers, okay? This is done, okay. The stop of the menstrual cycle, this is also caused because of low estrogen levels, which can be caused because of too much exercise, okay? So that completes this, and now there are only 2 parts left. Okay, now there are other factors which affect breathing, okay? So there's smoking, which increases the breathing rate due to the effect of carbon monoxide, okay? You have to keep noting this down as this is important, okay? Then there's anxiety. Anxiety also increases the breathing rate due to the effect of adrenaline. I'll discuss in another video. Then there's drug environmental, okay? This is increased because of high CO2 concentration, and sometimes it's increased because high temperature or humidity as an attempt to lose body heat by panting, okay? The fourth thing is altitude. Now, increased by low O2 concentrations in the atmosphere. If you climb high, for example, the mountain, you're climbing higher, the oxygen levels will become lower and lower, and therefore you will face problems, okay? Then there is the weight, okay? The breathing rate can increase because fat makes lungs ventilate harder, okay? Because the tidal volume falls, and I'll explain tidal volume over here, okay? However, due to weight, the breathing rate can also decrease. This is because if excessive body weight is a symptom of low activity on the thyroid gland, okay? And that concludes this piece. And now the final is exercise and breathing relationship, okay? The increase in breathing rate. If you exercise, there's an increase in breathing rate, which means you will take more breaths per minute. An increase in the tidal volume, which means more air per breath, okay? You intake more air. So now if you haven't subscribed to my channel, do so right now, and thank you and goodbye.